Alright guys, so today we're going to be discussing identity fraud. This is a walkthrough type thing. It's pretty simple. I'll be using these two items, the radars, which I'll discuss a lot later in the video. But they aren't important. The simple story is that you go to your doctors and he asks you a few questions, like why are you so tired? You then start blacking out, thinking that he might have poisoned you. Which is most likely not the case since, well, you were very tired. I just walked to a wall. So, the premise. Not premise, well, that's basically the story. You think he poisoned you, you black out and wake up here. It is unknown how you managed to get here. Just by playing the game. So, yeah. I've been walking in a circle. So, there are 3 enemies. Stan, Ralph, and Fraud. Mirror. Alright. So let's go over the enemies while we wait at this mirror. First enemy is Stan, as you just see him jump scare us. He kills you by... Oh god, it's the Fraud. Okay, he basically acts like the Peanut SCP. In case you don't know what the Peanut SCP is, probably because, well, it's most likely being removed and replaced with something else, I'm sure. Stan, he only moves if, and only if, you don't look at him. Yeah. If you simply look at Stan, he doesn't move. If he does manage to try and kill you, you might hear this jump scare sound. That's Stan trying to kill you. Simply look at him, well, basically turn around to look at him, and then back away. After you do that, he'll be off your tail. And go to target the next person. And if you're in the solo server, it's gonna be you. He's pretty simple. However, he does appear in, well, every maze. And he gets more common the further you get. He doesn't appear in the final area of the game, which we'll talk about later. He will be the least of your worries, so don't worry about him. And the next enemy in the list is Ralph, which you've actually seen earlier, as he has literally killed me. He isn't the most difficult, as well, as he appears actually pretty rarely. Anyways, if you turn a corner and you see him, he will chase you. Oh. If you're in his field of vision. And his walk speed will increase if he chases you. Ooh. Exit. I'll wait here and talk about the other characters. Shit, if you're in his field of view, he will slowly start to get faster and chase you. And he starts off rather slowly, so you do have a chance to run away. But when he increases speed, he can get faster than you. He does take 45 minutes to spawn in new servers. Which is what I assume. Since it's revamp version. And so spawn timer is unknown. It's also unknown where he spawns. It's most likely random.
Just how unlucky are you?
You just talked.
This is the land of
Okay.
luck. You're an insanely unlucky human. You'll cause a disaster. Good luck to us.
Oh, ignore that.
Luck streaming on Apple TV Plus, rated G.
Ignore that. Anyway. You can't dodge his attacks. It is pretty hard, so it's safer to run away. And take a lot of turns. Like 90 and 180 degree angles. Since Ralph doesn't have the best mobility when it comes to turning. And he will most likely stop chasing you. If you're not in his line of sight for long enough. And he has the most basic eye of all the monsters. Anyways, next up is the Fraud. The Fraud himself. He usually starts off pitch black and roams the maze. He is the only monster that doesn't attack on sight. The Fraud tries to fool the player into thinking that, well, they are a real player. After a while, he will start chasing you. And your screen will zoom out, and you'll get a speed boost to try and run away. He will also start floating and have massive head twitching. And in case you're wondering, the chase sequence runs around 30 seconds. So that's good. When he does kill you, you will obviously die. However, he does take your appearance to fool some more players. Since it's much easier to fool people when you're not a pitch black figure. You're like literally pitch black. Try not to run into any dead ends, as you will most likely die. Next up is Maze 2. Stan appears once again. And so does Ralph. They're about the same, however are more common. So that's pretty good. Well, bad. Good for him, bad for you. The fraud isn't really supposed to reach Maze 2, but if he manages to reach the entrance of Maze 2, and he starts chasing you, well, if you enter Maze 2, he will follow you in there. Which he isn't supposed to be there. However, in Maze 2, there is an enemy. Alice. Alice appears as a moving yellow dot, which is her eye. She is a zombie. With ripped dress. And is also missing an eye. Does not attack you on sight as well. Also, her official name is Kate. But we'll be using Alice as that's the more common name.
You just talked.
Okay, and ignore that as well. Anyways, oh, okay, just ignore the noises in the background. Dumb ad. Anyway, if there are too many players in one group, Alice will begin targeting them. And, just like Ralph, becoming faster. However, if she's in her physical form, and when she starts chasing, she will obviously turn to her physical form, she's harmless. So no worries there. However, she is only able to transform at corners and T-junctions. So if you stay away from there, you'll be fine. And then, there's Maze 3. Which takes this office type of look. It has, well, Stan, obviously. He's constant present. But also James. Also, Franz can appear as well, and Ralph can also appear. He really isn't supposed to appear. At all. Unless you manage to glitch the game. Anyways, James. James is actually pretty simple. If you move, he won't chase. He will chase you if you move. So if you don't move around him, you won't die. He's a one character that doesn't instantly kill you, and instead damages you, which is pretty nice. He will also sort of follow you as well when you reach some areas. Since he doesn't insta-kill you, if you want, you can tank some damage to avoid him, or get to where you want to be. It's recommended as, well, yes, you can and do regenerate health. It isn't that worth it. And I've completely, You avoided him. Never mind. You can tell he's near when, well, you hear a sound. It's this ominous sound effect when he's chasing you, or when you're near him. If you start hearing it, stop moving. And it's pretty much that simple. Well, really, it is. So, yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure he doesn't care if you're in the dark or not. He will still chase you. He does sometimes struggle with corners a lot. Okay, let me go from this. So you can use those to get away from him. He'll also patrol the closest player to him. So, yeah, he's gonna patrol me like this. He won't attack you though, and that's the good part. So, yay. After you do that, you reach the radio. And the radio is pretty much the hardest part about Maze 3. Not Stan or anything, it's this. The radio will just be a random code that does change over time, but usually lets you hear a few more times. It's Morse code, so good luck. For me, it was 25781. It is completely random, so good luck with that. And besides, it's not that hard to find a Morse code generator. Just get some pencil and paper and start doing it. Anyways, you will then reach the hallway. And here we have the final code to enter the door. So you might be wondering, how do we complete this code? Well, to complete this code, you will need a hex decoder. Yes, a hex decoder. And then you type the numbers on the bottom. Well, numbers and letters. It will take a minute. And remember, do not do the numbers on top. Those won't get you anything. So, once you've gotten your code, after doing the hex decoder, you will be able to use it on the code above. The code is usually replace all X number with a X number. So here I have this code, 0438937. And from my hex decoder, it tells me to replace all 3's with 5. So I type the code 045957. And that's usually the code. Or well, what the decoder says. Replace X with a X. And then you do the code. Then the door opens and you reach the final room, with an enemy presumably called the last hurdle. And it's a boss fight. As the door shuts behind you, you're left in the ominous dark room. The last hurdle appears. You fight the boss. If you're not behind one of these pillars, you will damage you rapidly with his laser. You need to shoot rockets at him. However, if you don't want to constantly have to peek out, you can't do this little trick. If you manage to find a sweet spot behind these pillars, you can shoot rockets at him and still damage him without having to move towards him, which is really good. So if you do something like this, you can go a bit further out. However, I'm at low HP, so yeah, like this, you can damage him freely. Just make sure the rocket actually hits him and not the pillar, because that can't happen. See? It's also much faster with more than one person. It also doesn't matter where you shoot him, you just have to shoot him. His health bar at the top of his, screen. After a while shooting, you get set backwards and some rocks should fall. Move onto the rocks as soon as possible. Because lava will start flowing. Then he'll throw bombs. This is phase 2. It's not that hard. You just have to dodge the bombs. The bombs do have a pretty big radius, so be careful with that. And if you fall, you might not be able to get back up. Don't know, never tried. It's not that difficult to dodge the bombs. He will get to his 3rd phase pretty soon, which will start throwing 4 bombs like that. I feel like it's much easier. In fact, it is easier to dodge in the 2nd phase, in 1st phase. Since, you might not have to move as much as we've seen earlier. Just look at how easy this fight is. And once you land the final blow, he is defeated. And you are victorious. So, that's identity fraud. Roll credits. In case you're wondering what the radars do, so the normal radar, it's a pretty simple object. The normal radar simply gives you a proximity of where enemies are. So, if the radar is blinking green, enemies are around, but they aren't that worryful. If it's blinking yellow, then the enemies are nearby, and you should be careful. And if it's red, you should already be seeing the enemy and should be running away. The advanced radar simply tells you where everything is. It tells you where an enemy and player are. The only problem is the fact that it doesn't tell you if it's a player or an enemy. Also, you have to wait about like 2 seconds, I think, not too sure, for it to beep and give you where the objects are. There's also a hard mode as well, but I did the normal mode here. And in case you're having trouble and getting lost in the mazes, there are a few maps online to help you. Anyway, goodbye.